This show is sponsored by idealworkspace.com, which promotes a healthier way of working through their adjustable standing desk. Check out their latest smart adjustable standing desk at altizen.com, ALTIZEN.com. Welcome to Analyze Asia, the podcast dedicated to dissect the pulse of business, technology, and media in Asia. In this episode, I speak to Navkender Singh from IDC on Reliance Jio, the Indian telco which took the market by storm and with their disruptive business model and launch strategy. We discuss how Reliance Jio have revolutionized the Indian telco market and where they will be heading next. Hi Navkender.
Hi Bernard, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing in India?
I'm very well. India, this time of the year is very hot, so just enjoying the temperatures.
I see. And I'm talking to Navkender Singh, technology analyst for IDC India. We have a pretty good conversation the last time. In fact, I have some very interesting comments from my audience who have listened to the conversation and they thought were very interesting when you explained the demonetization and also the smartphone coverage in India. So since our last conversation, what have you been up to?
So Bernard, since the last time we spoke, India being an exciting market, lots of things keep on happening here. There is a new thing which is coming up in India called the Goods and the Services Tax, which is called the GST. It will now replace all the taxes which are levied till now. So it will be a single tax all India. So those are some of the things, GST is going to impact a lot of sales for all the goods, consumer goods, commercial goods and everything. So I think most of the companies, vendors and the smartphone, tablets and all other PCs and other guys, they're trying to see that how the distribution and how the retail level distribution and everything will behave after the GST comes into effect from the 1st of July. So it's a single largest tax implementation for so many years in India. And India being such a huge market, it's going to impact the volumes for this quarter. So we've been trying to get insights around that.
So this particular tax, is it going to override all the existing provincial tax, for example, in different cities or different states for India?
Yes. So for example, the value-added tax used to be higher in the southern states, about 15%, and it used to be lower in the northern states of India, around 5%. So the companies used to have, their locations, their warehouse and other stuff in the northern, states where the taxes are lower. But now it will be one tax, one India, your goods and services tax, and the taxes are defined not by the states now, it's by the goods category. So mobile phones, they fall into 12%. And so on and so forth for each electronics category and the consumer goods category. That's how they're defined.
Since our last conversation, any changes in terms of the coverage of smartphones that you have laid out, like in terms of which particular smartphone is leading the category?
So since last time we spoke, Samsung has been holding to the lead. They actually grew about 1 or 2% share in Q1 of 2017, which is January to March quarter. But Xiaomi has done really well in that quarter, and their phone Redmi Note 4, and then when they launched in last month they launched Redmi 4. They have been very well accepted in the market, and they are doing very well. Oppo and Vivo, they are continuing their investment in the retail channel. Oppo since then has actually taken the lead sponsorship for the Indian cricket team. As you know, India is a cricket crazy nation, so Oppo is a lead sponsor for the Indian cricket team wherever they play globally. And Vivo has been for the past 3 years sponsor of the Indian IPL, Indian Premier League, which is the 2020 format for the India geography. So both of these guys are doing very high decibel marketing, and I think it's working for them. These are the two, three players which are doing very well in the market.
So the reason why I got you here today is actually to talk about a company that's of pretty interest to a lot of my audience out there. It's the company Reliance Jio, which is actually a telecommunications company. Can you describe the mission and vision of Reliance Jio?
So Reliance Jio, the overarching mission for them is to realize the digital India vision, which Indian government has. Since government was formed in 2014, Indian Prime Minister has been has started this initiative, which is Digital India, in which there are smart cities, there is internet penetration, more households, more people to be connected to digitally to the internet. So Reliance Jio, the mission is to actually be a part of Digital India, ensure that Indians have the highest quality and the quantity of data access at the most affordable prices. So that's the overarching mission they have, for their existence. Their vision actually spans across 5 pillars, which are actually interconnected. They want to give the best quality broadband network with the highest capacity, at an affordable 4G smartphone and a wireless devices with compelling application and content services, which overall gives a superior digital experience, but at a very affordable and simple tariffs So considering that India is such a large country and since so many people still don't have that power to afford the data prices, those are the 5 pillars which Reliance Jio is working on. Affordable devices, wireless and IP devices, and quality broadband at an affordable prices. So that's the thing they want.
So what's the history behind Reliance Jio with respect to the Reliance Industry conglomerate in India?
So in 2005, Reliance Industries is one of the largest conglomerates and family group in India. In 2005, Reliance Industries was split into 2 parts. One part went to the elder brother, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, and one part went to the younger brother, Mr. Anil Ambani. So Mukesh Ambani had started Reliance Communication earlier, way back in 2001 when their father was also alive. That part, Reliance Infocom, it went to the younger brothers group. And Mukesh Ambani was holding the reins of the petrochemicals and the oil refining part of the Reliance Industries. In June 2010, the government of India had a spectrum auction, a Reliance Industries Broadband Services Limited. So this IBCL was the only firm to win broadband spectrum in all the 22 zones of India. Now in India is divided into states, as you know, provinces, which is called in China or other places. We call it circles. So in telecom, it's called circles. So each state is almost equal broadband spectrum in all 22 circles of India for 4G. So when Reliance Industries, they acquired this company, they had Spectrum All India, and that's how Jio was, formed. Then they worked on establishing the base for the high-speed optical fiber 4G network only. And then slowly and steadily, then they launched the phones, the Life-branded phones, and then they launched the services around September 2016. So that's the whole journey for Jio.
What does Reliance Jio operate as a LTE mobile network operator then?
So Reliance Jio is a very interesting case. They own spectrum in 850 megahertz, which is about band 5, 1800 megahertz, which is band 3, in about 22, 10 and 6 circles of India. But in 22, all the circles of India, all the states of India, they have 2300 megahertz only VoLTE spectrum. So it's only VoLTE company, in the world. The spectrum is valid till 2035. So that's how it is. So they are the only 4G player. They don't have 3G or 2G, nothing.
So that means they start off straight from 4G, which also means that the connectivity should be pretty fast for people who actually subscribe to the network itself. Am I right to say that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an all IP network, and since they're only on 4G, obviously 3G and 2G, is available with other players in India, but they are the only 4G player, and obviously it gives you faster speeds and faster data experience. That's the whole plank where they're playing on.
Just to be curious, because in the context of India, will eventually the 4G network be open to other operators, or is just going to be Reliance Jio holding the rights to the spectrum then?
No, 4G is available with other players also. Airtel and Vodafone and Idea also have 4G. They actually had 4G before Jio also rolled out, but they were sporadically and, piecemeal. They were launching 4G in some cities, doing some pilot cities in some of the states, and that's how we're doing it. Jio, when it came in, they had nothing else. They did not have 3G or a 2G. They had to launch on 4G. So when they launched, and now obviously most of the India is covered with 4G. So Jio claims that by this year mid, 90% of Indian population will be covered with Jio network, which will be 4G. And all put together, I think about 60-70% of India right now is covered with 4G network.
Okay, that's interesting. So I understand that there is a lot of turnover going on in the Reliance Jio's executive management team. So can you talk about the executive management team as a whole and what has been happening there then?
So since launch happened in September 2016, before that also, there was some exits which happened at the top level also. But I think, a few of the names which are important and who are the important influencers in the Reliance are the gentleman named Sanjay Mashruwala. He's a managing director of Reliance Jio for quite a long time now. Then there is a gentleman named Mr. Sunil Dutt. He's the president for the devices business, which might interest to some of the China OEM players. He handles the whole devices space for Reliance Jio. And then there's a guy named Mr. Matthew Uman, who is the president for Network Global Strategy and the Service Development. Now, having said that, these are players which are not from the family, but some of the people from the family are also involved actively in the day-to-day activities. Mr. Mukesh Ambani's son, Mr. Akash Ambani, is very actively involved. He's a young 23-year-old, boy from, did the MBA from USA, but he's actively involved in the top management. So these are the 3-4 players which are important, as a stakeholder.
So actually, what are the core products and services from Reliance Jio to the actual end customer then?
Since it's an all IP network, and they cover about, right now they cover about 75-80% of India's population, and it's a 4G, only 4G LTE network. One of the major things is the Jio 4G broadband, and that's been sort of a game changer in India. So when they launched in September, it actually shook the market. They launched with an offer which said that you need to have a VoLTE device, VoLTE smartphone, and till March 31st. So initially it was launched in December 31st, all free. You don't have to pay for anything. So we have to understand this from the point of view that they are a VoLTE player, voice over LTE. Right? Their voice also is carried over data packets. Obviously, voice, when it goes on VoLTE, it carries very small data packets. It's not very heavy on the network. So voice also carrying on data network. And when they're giving data free to you, till about next 3-4 months, it suddenly shook the market. People stood in queues. They wanted to buy a VoLTE phone. They wanted to buy a Reliance Jio SIM. So that's how it happened. So Jio 4G broadband is one of the major things they have. Then since the inception, when they started about 5 years back, 2010 and 11, the VoLTE smartphone or the device system in India was not at all present. Most of the device players at that time, they were launching 2G or 3G devices. Now, Reliance thought that, when they will launch, they need to seed the market with 4G VoLTE devices, right? So if the devices are not there, how would a customer use the SIM? So they needed to seed the market with affordable 4G VoLTE smartphones. They had, conversations with all China-based players, most of the big China-based OEMs. And then they launched their own series of smartphones called LifeSmart. They started about last January 2016. They started launching this around the time about June or July 2016 and really flooded the market. So second part is the Life smartphone business they have. Then they have the services business, which runs on the 4G VoLTE network. So it's something called Jio Apps. So Jio Apps is their whole apps ecosystem, which is free till 2017 end, which includes your Jio TV, is a live TV services. They have about 300 plus channels which are live present on your smartphone, on your Jio SIM. Jio Cinema is just like a Netflix. They tie up with Bollywood producers and other production houses. Jio Chat Messenger, it's like a WhatsApp or it's like WeChat in China. Jio Music, it's a music player, subscription model based. Then there's a Jio Mags, magazine reader. Then Express News, Jio Security, it's a security app. Jio Drive, it's a cloud storage app. And then there's a Jio Money wallet. So it's like Paytm or Airtel Money. It's a mobile wallet for you. So they're saying that they give the taste of high-speed VoLTE speeds on a VoLTE smartphone at an affordable price to the customer, free for some time. He starts experiencing the data. He starts experiencing these services. So that's the whole plan they're doing.
So how does the devices business work with Reliance Jio then?
Okay, so the devices business, Life as a brand was established in 2015 by Jio, and it actually works under Reliance Retail. Now, Reliance Industries is the holding company. They are into the retail business also. They're into telecom business also, and there's some other stuff also. Reliance Retail is their retail consumer electronics arm of the Reliance Industries. So Life was established in 2015 as a subsidiary of Reliance Retail. It operated along with the parent company's flagship venture, which is called Jio. And it was marketed very closely with Jio's 4G services, smartphones under the brand, and they were launched in January 2016 and went to the market around June, July of 2016. These are the 4G enabled smartphones named after the 4 elements. So earth, flame, water, and wind. So these were the 4 sub-brands under the Life, depending on the price category. These are mainly manufactured by smartphone manufacturers or the OEMs who are sitting in China. So ZTE, was one of the players. One of the major players were Intex at the starting, CK Telecom, and etc. And so that's how they started. And they reached to about, I think, number 5 in Q3 2016. As I guess number 5 also, one quarter. They did very well for about 3-4 quarters and last year.
So what are the important mobile devices that Reliance Jio promote for their network then?
So another device which they are promoting right now very heavily is a JioFi. So JioFi is actually the dongle. So it's actually a mobile hotspot. It has a battery of 2300 mAh. It works on the Jio SIM. It connects up to 32 devices at one point of time. So you just need to have that particular device. It's very cheaply available at about $30. You just keep it on the table and 32 devices can work on it at high speed. Secondly, what they did was when they realized that around Q3 2016, most of the other manufacturers, they also wanted to acquire the smartphone customer who is using a Jio SIM. Because Jio was in play, Jio was in fashion at that time. They started launching VoLTE smartphones. So when Jio realized that most of the other vendors are now launching VoLTE smartphones, they tied up with these guys also. And they had, some partnership alliances, some of the data offers. So with Samsung, Intex, Micromax, Gionee and everybody, that these devices work on Jio SIM. So it's a cross-pollination of all the other brands also. And now the Life brand is winning away now because now the objective of seeding of the VoLTE devices in India market has been almost done. About 90% plus of the devices which are being shipped to India are now VoLTE enabled, 4G VoLTE enabled. So there is actually no need of Reliance Jio to remain in this particular business because telecom being their primary business and they will have to start making money from the services and the ecosystem player rather than the devices because devices is a very low margin business as it is.
So if I am a Asia mobile phone OEM, how do I approach Reliance Jio? For example, say I'm a Huawei or a Samsung. How do I talk to them then?
Okay, one, it depends on, obviously, Samsung is a different case altogether because Samsung and Reliance, versus Reliance, Samsung, obviously has, some kind of negotiation power. But a Chinese ODM or, a brand which is not so popular with the customers, Reliance Jio is a very hard negotiator. You have to understand that. They negotiate very hard because they're able to provide you scale. They are willing to place orders of 80 million, 100 million units also. And they did that in 2002 also in the first avatar of, when they launched the Reliance Infocom. So one, you should expect hard negotiations from Jio. They really make you work absolute rock bottom prices and margins. But in return, you can expect volume, scale, and then it can help you make your operation so efficient that you enjoy economies of scale and, maybe do some marketing around it so that the brand also becomes known in India. But hard negotiations, rock bottom margins and prices, but you can get scale and the volumes, which otherwise no other player would be able to give you.
So I have a very interesting question on this then. So do you foresee Apple would ever work with Reliance Jio, given that they want things their way and you're dealing with a hard negotiator like Reliance Jio on the other end?
See, that's what I was saying, Bernard. Depends on, which two people are talking. So between Jio and Apple, in devices ecosystem, Apple has more negotiation power. It's an interest of Jio to actually be associated with Apple because Apple has a aspirational premium brand value in India, rather than Apple going to Jio and let's do something. They can sit across the table, but Apple would obviously have upper hand there. But some of the smaller players might not be able to do that.
So how does Reliance Jio compare to the other telcos within India?
So I spoke about Reliance Jio is a 4G only network. The network is running entirely on 4G. To access the network, you need a 4G compatible phone, which is the minimum requirement you have. With VoLTE support, voice over LTE support. Otherwise, you won't be able to make a voice call. Reliance, it is, the lineup of live phones. It offers a low-cost option. It used to offer a low-cost option. Another thing was they launched everything free till 31st December 2016, and then they extended the offer till 31st March 2017. So from September 5th till 31st March 2017, for about 7 months, everything was free. This really actually, made a huge dent in the balance sheets of all the other players. That really gave the market shares to Reliance Jio. In terms of data, at least. Data prices are your absolute rock bottom in the world. In India now, from across the world. Their coverage, they claim that their coverage will be about 90% this, by middle of 2017. They're claiming to cover about 18,000 cities and towns and about 2 lakh villages. So another thing which they're planning to launch is the Wi-Fi hotspots. So they are targeting about 1 million Wi-Fi hotspots by August 2017. This will be available across malls, school, colleges, hospitals, other public places where, if you have a 4 GB plan, on a Wi-Fi, you'll have an 8 GB plan. So suddenly, it's a very smooth data plan at a very affordable price for you. Another thing which, when they launched, and it's still free voice calls and roaming. You only pay for the data, and your voice calls are free because your voice is being carried on data, and there is no roaming charges. So we used to have roaming charges, for example, from one province in India to another province. I used to pay, as a subscriber, I used to pay incoming roaming or outgoing roaming charges. There are no roaming charges for Reliance Jio, which was followed suit by other players also. Then they have bundled the entertainment services. As I spoke about, live TV, the wallet, the chat service and everything. One of the things which was actually a very refreshing thing for a customer was the eKYC. So KYC is a know your customer. Whenever a customer has to buy a telecom SIM in India, he has to submit his papers, his identification, his address proof and everything. It used to take about 2 to 3 days normally, before Jio happened. Jio they wrote everything on the UID, which is a single number for each citizen in India, about billion plus and counting, already on board in it. And they did the activation for the SIM in about 15 minutes. I have a proof for that. I did that. I have about 2 Jio SIMs. So it's a very smooth process. The experience was very good. And then the last is the Jio Fiber. So they're planning to launch fiber to the home. They're planning to the DTH space, which is a TV space. So I think all these put together, they are a quite big ecosystem player, and they're trying to touch the lives of all the consumer across all the touch points of digital ecosystem a customer has. Mobility, TVs, and internet and everything put together.
And then, of course, on top of that, they also put services on top of that particular layer of it. So you won't see it becoming a dumb pipe at some point, right?
But they have their own services also. So they don't want to be a dumb pipe. They have their own services. So once they have DTH or fiber to the home and everything, they have their own services. They're launching their own services. And they're very hard negotiating in that also. And I think it'll, help them. Because, see, the whole plan is you give an experience of the free data and good or affordable prices to the customer. The customer starts experiencing the data. The people who would have normally not experienced data, they start experiencing the data and the other services. And then they slowly migrate to a smartphone. They slowly migrate and start using more internet. That's the whole plan.
What are we going to see from Reliance Jio within the next 1 year then? Is it going to be just more coverage or just rolling out of the current set of services and then start charging at some point, given that they're giving all their services for free only up to a certain period of time?
1st April onwards, 2017, 1st April onwards, they've already started charging to the customer with some nominal charges to the customers. But yes, people like us or anybody who has got a taste of data now. So they used to give 1 GB of free data per day in the free period from September to March. 1 GB per day is a lot, right? Now you start paying for it because you got a taste of the data. You start watching videos. You are accessing entertainment services of your smartphone. So people are enrolling onto that. Secondly, I think they are planning by August or September 2017. So there are about 550 million consumers in India who are a feature phone user. These feature phone users, they don't have the use case or the power to afford a smartphone right now. And a good smartphone, which is for a decent quality, doesn't come below $50 or $60 right now in India. There are phones that are about $45, $50, but the experience is not so great. These guys are using feature phone, which is a lot more sturdier with much better battery. So Reliance is planning a VoLTE feature phone now, a range of VoLTE feature phones. Now, what it will do is, suddenly you have a feature phone at the same price as a normal feature phone, which is about $15 or $20. But you get VoLTE. VoLTE means voice over LTE. So you get voice also on that. You're not spending extra on that. And you get some amount of data so that you can start experiencing some services in the minimal, form and fashion. So for example, maybe Facebook Lite or WhatsApp Lite or some of the chat services which can be accessed, over small screen feature phone is 2.8 inches or 3.5 inches. And then you start experiencing this a year and a half down the line. These customers are expected to migrate to a smartphone at the end of the day. So they are planning to do that. And I think second point is, with all the free services and everything, they will start charging for all these geo apps and other stuff at some point of time around exit of 2017, because that's a pure business model for them. So for the magazine, for the live TV and everything. Right now, if somebody is spending money on their DTH, everything is available free on the smartphone with a Jio SIM. And they will at some point of time start charging. But right now, they're in the acquisition mode. They're acquiring more customers. They're activating SIMs every day, a huge number, and that's how it's happening right now.
Navkender, many thanks for coming on the show to actually shed some light on Reliance Jio, given that I have heard a lot about them from where I am, and also even people in the US are very curious about what they have been doing in India. So, of course, as of all times, help my audience. How do they find you?
Thanks, Bernard, for inviting me. I am available on Twitter, Navkender_IDC, and I am available on LinkedIn also. And my email ID is nsingh@idc.com, nsingh@idc.com. Pleasure to speak to you, Bernard.
And you can find me at bleong@bernardleong.com. Subscribe to us at Analyze Asia, ANALYSE. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Acast, and TuneIn, and of course Google Play in the US market. And tweet to me, give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, and of course drop us comments from time to time. So once again, Navkender, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you so much.